Hey everyone, I'm Eric. Welcome back to a new episode of the SDR Game podcast. Today my guest is Andres de Frutos Zambrano, Global Sales Enablement of Pigment. Andres, welcome to the show.
Eric, muchas gracias. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm very excited to join you.
Yeah, same here. Super excited to have you. So before we start, can you explain what Pigment does for the audience?
So Pigment is a business planning and analytics platform for enterprise companies. I think you've had a few of our competitors in your call. So I think Ashley and her boss, I believe, operate in a similar environment to us. But we're, let's say, more like enterprise focused versus their mid-market. So we sell to finance teams.
Okay, will be an interesting episode actually to talk about a different segment. So,
Exactly.
what's the size of Pigment today?
So when I joined, we grow quick, so it's tough to keep track. But I think we're 240 today, and within BDRs, there's 30 of us. 30 of them. I used to be one of them and moved to enablement 5 months ago.
And yeah, I forgot to mention that at the beginning, but yeah, Andres was the number one BDR on the team in pipeline created. So we're going to focus on his journey and what he was doing and everything on that. So let's talk about the SDR team. So I know that you mentioned that today. You mentioned to me, not they're in the recording, but you're in Toronto, so you're opening a new office and building a new team. What's the structure of the BDR team? Do you have any specific segment, but also region that you're going after?
So we're divided by regions. So we have our global head of business development in France, who looks after Europe and North America, which is where we operate, and we're divided by sub-regions within the region. So we have North EMEA, South EMEA, and then we have a team in the US as well as a team now in Toronto, which I'm onboarding. And we're still looking for a BDR manager here. So shameless job promotion in Eric's podcast.
And for Toronto, the team will be focused just on Canada or a part of the US, or what's the plan?
Great question. So Canada, there's a big chunk of the market that we can take here. There's a big incumbent legacy provider that we compete against. And then we might also give service to some of the sales leaders in the US as well, maybe more on the strategic accounts. But yeah, that's the idea.
And how many SDRs do you have in the North American region and in Europe?
Yeah, it's like half and half. So yeah, like around 16 and 15.
Okay.
Roughly.
Let's talk about now the ICP. Which industry are you going after? Do you have like a focus, or is it you can go after every industry on the market?
Yeah, so Pigment is a fully customizable modeling platform. Like what you do within Pigment is model out business logic, just like you do in Excel. So we can respond to pretty much any business model. That being said, we're opportunistic and landed in the tech, let's say computer software ecosystem, very focused on like B2B software, but then quickly went into financial services companies. Today we serve one of the biggest banks in France and big financial service providers, as well as retail companies, manufacturing companies. So yeah, very, very broad, I would say industry based, but our ICP, more than 100 million in revenue and more than around maybe 1,000 headcount. What's really important for us is that we have at least 4 or 5 people within financial planning and analysis, or revenue operations, or workforce planning, which is the areas of the business which we're selling to. So it's more about the number of users and the need than the industry or type of company.
Okay. So you started to talk about the team actually. So you said you need at least 5 or 4 people on the team. So what's the buyer personas what are the buyer personas you're going after?
Yeah, so who signs off is usually the chief financial officer. And then the key users of the platform are the FP&A professionals. So FP&A is the area that gives insights to the CFOs on how to steer the business into a profitable direction. But FP&A has many components. Like you can have FP&A teams looking after costs or looking after revenues, or looking after headcount, or looking after sustainability, ESG drivers. So it really depends.
What's ESG?
ESG, environmental, social, and governance standards. So we've built a use case in the platform for carbon accounting. So for companies to plan and control their carbon footprint.
Now let's talk about the pains you are solving, because I think what's interesting also to understand is, because you mentioned what Pigment does, but what are the, I would say, the three main pain or challenges you're helping with?
Usually how it's been done, financial planning is a lot of spreadsheet based. There are some legacy incumbent providers in the space which we operate. The category of software is called EPM, Enterprise Performance Management. And the pain with spreadsheets is the typical pain that any industry can solve with spreadsheets. So error prone, financial planning areas have to divide the model and like not have everyone look at each other's information. There's consolidation of data, manual tasks, etc. Then the EPM softwares that are the incumbents to ours solve for that, but they did it in a way that was very technically heavy. So it was a heavy lift to implement, and it was not very user-friendly, quite clunky tools. If you wanted to implement it and maintain it properly, you need to call your Deloitte guy and your very expensive consultants to revamp your models. So we've sort of meshed the flexibility of a spreadsheet and the power of a enterprise-ready modeling platform, and we've invested a lot in our user experience to solve for that pain and help CFOs and CEOs and revenue leaders and HR leaders to have a clear understanding of where the business is at every point of time and continuously make the right decisions to steer the business into the right direction.
You said something interesting that actually at my current job at Castor, it's pretty similar. We are going after a market for, so it's the data space, but the traditional providers, generally when you work with them, it's the same. You need to talk to a consultant to help you update or manage the system. So it's pretty time consuming and costs a lot of money. So pretty similar on that also. Now let's talk about you.
Yeah, and sorry, just to clarify in one point there, like Pigment is a modeling platform, so you do have to set it up. It's compared to like Mosaic, which is where Ashley and her boss, I forgot his name,
Matt,
came from. Yeah, that's like more like a templated solution that sits on spreadsheets. Pigment, you need to set it up, you need to implement it. It takes time, but then it's much easier to maintain, and you don't have to rebuild it every time your business model changes. So there is a lift in terms of implementation. It's not a plug and play, but it's something very new to the EPM market.
Now let's talk about KPIs and quota. So what was your quota as a BDR?
We get measured by sales accepted opportunities. So I had to find someone that had authority, need, urgency, and a lot of money to implement the planning software. And I had to find 18 of those per quarter, which was equivalent to 850K of pipeline. So yeah, that was the quota.
So 6 per month. You said 16?
Around 6 per month.
No, 16, 18. Okay, yeah, around 6 per month. And did you have a specific KPIs to hit, or did you need to set your specific KPIs for yourself and your conversion rate? So what was your process for that?
We had like very high level standards, but because I joined the business, there was 2 other BDRs. I was the third one, but we were just building out the function. So we sort of set the standard. I would say I tried to activate around 20 to 25 accounts per week. We have a very hyper-personalized approach. So it's not like high volume. It's really about building the relationship and getting through the very few accounts that we want to sell at. Because not everyone needs Pigment. Like only companies at a certain stage will need something like Pigment.
When you say personalized, what triggers you are looking for example, to reach out to an account?
Here I want to call out an amazing growth team and growth function that we've built out at Pigment. So we have, 30 BDRs, but we have a team of engineers giving service to those BDRs and setting us up with the best automation workflows to automatically trigger insights that BDRs can use in their copywriting to to get a response. So we use things like job posts, scrapping job posts to see what competitors they're using, seeing how when they go to customer review pages to compare our competitors against the ecosystem. We, yeah, we what else? Like when they visit our website, things like that, and also when our champions, because we've created a quite intense community of Pigment fans in our user ecosystem. So when they move around from company to company, we make sure to track that and make that actionable for our BDRs to, hey, this person was at Deliveroo using Pigment and now he moved to whatever company. Let's go after him because we know he loves it. And so this sort of automations that we've built, I think it's very advanced, more than I've seen in any company.
Just for quick context, I met Andres' boss, Alexis, in Montpellier, actually in France, and we were talking about this, the team he was building. Oh. And so I remember it was almost a year ago, and he was talking with me about this team that he was building. So it was interesting to see that. So can you explain how it's working with the engineering team? So do you have like a specific list of accounts, and then they're doing the research for you, or what's the process?
We'd use like a account-based prospection approach. So each BDR starts the quarter with 80 to 100 accounts within an RCP. And then, so that's like the base. But then BDRs need to go through that list of accounts and like activate them or reject it or complete them to give a feedback to the growth team. And then as the growth team, as the quarter advances, we can also allocate accounts to BDRs based on insights. So this is in collaboration between the growth team and the BDR managers, as well as the account executives and our partners' ecosystem. So we're like, hey, we noticed that this company is implementing a tool because it mentions it in the job description, activate it. So they add like one more account to their book of business, which should be around max 100 accounts at one single point of time.
What I'm understanding here, if I'm maybe comparing to other teams, I know a few companies who are doing some stuff similar, not maybe the same team, but they don't have like the same team specifically. But here, the job of the BDR is to prospect. You don't need to manually research your accounts. You have a team to help you with that. So the main focus is to focus on the revenue generating activities.
Yes, however, the good BDRs are the ones who engage their brain. Like Edward, our head of growth, he's built like an incredible process, but still a machine. So without the human aspect of going there and like analyzing what the job description is, how you can associate the description of the job description to pains that the competitor they have might have. So without that like human, hey, business, let's think about business model. How would they plan their business and how might their current setup be hurting their day-to-day so that we can position and spark curiosity in our technology.
Now let's talk about time management. Do you have any morning rituals? What are the first 60 minutes of your day looks like?
So I always clean my inbox first thing in the morning. I think it's changed a lot since I was a BDR. When I was a BDR, my routine was be the first one who gets there, be the last one who leaves. And usually I had more energy in the mornings. I struggled with energy because there was a lot of cold calling. So yeah, usually cold block in the morning. Then I would like activate accounts in the afternoon, like push new accounts where I knew I was really comfortable with. Just for some context, Eric. So I worked before being a BDR. I operated in management consulting, working with these types of tools. So with some of Pigment's main competitors. So I understood the problem we solved pretty well, and that's why I was able to ramp up successfully. And yeah, that's why that part of activating accounts, finding pains, calling out possible pains was really natural to me. But yeah, as far as time management, just super conscious about how you're spending your time. Like if I wasn't either impacting pipeline or ARR or hiring the next big talent for Pigment, I would switch around the task I was doing. But yeah, no specific like agenda for that.
You said that you struggle with energy. So what do you mean by that?
When you first meet me, I can be a bit like shy, a bit nervous. So when you're cold calling over the phone, that comes through, and it might put you in the "this is a guy cold calling me" bucket really quick. So I really had to drink a lot of water, stand up when I was doing my cold calls, and even my qualification calls, the same. Like I would get nervous, but yeah, that's. I think I powered through this.
Okay, and so you said that you are drinking a lot of water. What else? What else help you get more energy?
I think rejection helped me, like getting the first bad rejections. I was like, you can get rejected, and my ego died, and it's not the end of the world. Like I'm still here, and then that helped me to be like, okay, this doesn't matter. We have one BDR in our French office, who's the top performing BDR. Like I was the top performing back then, but he was just ramping. This person blows everyone out of the water. He's incredible. And he just doesn't care. Like he just doesn't care. He just calls and like a yes, a no, and he has this like amazing confidence and but not arrogance, just like confident and like happiness. And so I also I think learned a lot from him, and seeing him ramping up when I was already like a ramped rep helped me a lot to say, okay, I need to emulate what he's doing.
Did you know how to cold call before joining Pigment, or it was your first time cold calling?
First time cold calling, for sure. I was like working in the operations, very far from like selling software. When I first met Alexi, he was like, okay, like you have no idea what this role is about, let me tell you. And I just wanted it into Pigment because I thought they were going to be the next big thing. And that's why I was like, okay, I'll try BDR, but not at all.
Do you have any tips for BDR, SDR who want to improve on cold calling?
Yeah, pick up the phone, like start trying and get some rejections, and think of, be curious. Like it's not about yourself, like just spark curiosity, ask the right questions, and yeah, it's the cheapest way to book calls by far. Not because you will book calls over the phone, but because you can easily disqualify leads. So think of it as you're just saving time. You're making your life easier. You're calling because you want either a yes or a no, and you want to move on to the next thing, or you want to spend more time and more energy in this account. And this is like my recommendation. Just try and do it. Mock calls work for me a lot, like having like practice with the team and doing like mock exercises. And yeah, and having like somewhat script that works for you. For example, I always worked for permission-based approach. Hey, this is Andres calling with Pigment. Do you have 30 seconds? And actually, because I struggled with energy, I would like make like a little giggle, and I would be like, hey, this is Andres with Pigment. I appreciate that I'm calling you cold. Do you have 30 seconds? Like almost like being like funny about the fact that I'm cold calling, and that helped me.
Actually, on cold call, so another thing is what I'm thinking about a call, you get, I'm not here only to book a meeting, but also to get some information, because I think you are going after big companies, and generally you are not going to book something on the first call. So you will get some information from someone on the team, and then you can use that in your outreach. So that's how I started when I was cold calling, thinking about this way instead of just, hey, I just need to book a meeting and that's it. Now it's, even though I'm not booking a meeting, at least I get some information that I can leverage later.
Our BDRs here, we really sell calls. Like our product is pretty technical. Like if you're gonna jump in with the CFO about their planning process, like they want to talk to someone who's an expert in the industry. So we do almost like sell calls. Like, hey, I'm not an expert, but like I noticed this or that, and I thought it could be a good fit, and like try to uncover some more pain, and if there's a project.
So now let's go back on what you were saying earlier. You said that before joining Pigment, you are working in the space, and when we were preparing this episode, actually, you mentioned that you think that helps you get success really quickly because you already know what CFOs are facing. So when you joined Pigment, how did you think about that? And can you explain what was your thought process about learning? Maybe you already knew the space, but what was your process when you joined Pigment to understand what?
So it was scary. It was scary because I was very new to the space, and I really knew that I wanted to transition into like high growth tech early seed, and I wanted to sell into the CFO office because it's something that I knew. But I wasn't expecting to be a BDR. Like I was thinking, okay, I'll go into the operations or enablement or FP&A. But Alexi was like, the in into the business. You're smart, Andres, but you need to do your duty as a BDR. So I approached it as like, I have a competitive background. Like I grew up competing in the discipline of squash. I was a national champion in my home country, Colombia, growing up. And it's quite a tough sport. You need to run a lot, hit the ball many, many times perfectly to win 1 point. And this is the BDR job. Like you just need to hit the ball and hit and hit and hit and keep trying and never give up and resist more than the other one. So I think that mindset really helped me. And my amazing teammates, like really Pigment, the best thing about Pigment is the team that we've built, the talent that we've secured. And I think they just gave me the confidence that I needed to build relationships, and having a good product that I know adds value was huge into that. So I would recommend like look for products that you're really backing up, that you really know that you're not disturbing people's day, but you're actually going to solve some of their issues they might be facing.
Exactly. So now let's focus more on the pains, because I know we already talked about this at the beginning, but in your previous roles, what do you think was super helpful for you at Pigment in your BDR role?
So it's actually the role that my consulting firm had in these type of projects was advising in selection. So it would be like 10-week projects. We would go to like an industrial manufacturing company, and they would have a planning process in place, so a financial planning process. So we would go 2 weeks, diagnose what their process looks like, gather some pain points in the organization, in processes, and tooling. Like tooling was a big piece of it. And I encountered one of our main competitors that I really fell in love with the technology. Like I thought, okay, these tools, now that I understand them, they add a lot of value and save a lot of time. And I think this is what really helped me position myself as an expert and also position our technology like something that has never seen before.
Today, how do you, not being maybe keep relevant, but how do you still learn about your prospects problem? Do you listen to some podcast, or what's your process with it?
We're a big fan of Gong here at Pigment, and so we're on a daily basis having conversation with finance leaders of the best companies in the world, and that's very insightful because you understand how they look at their business and what they might be going through, hearing their experience with legacy providers, and with like spreadsheets. So yeah, that's how I keep up. I should probably keep updated, talk more to our customers, talk more to our prospects. But yeah, now that I'm in enablement, I'm sort of like in the background, and I let the product and marketing team do that. They do a great job as well.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer to listen to Gong's call, or what's your preference?
A lot of Gong. Yeah, a lot of Gong. A lot of listening to how others approach it and how you can make it yours. But yeah, lots of Gong. I was in the leaderboard of Gong, I think, every week as a BDR as well.
Also, something you mentioned when we were preparing this, something that you think helped you to succeed was multithreading. Can you explain what was your approach with multithreading for the SDRs?
So I would do like blocks. So I would have my sequences, so my like cadences with emails. Within my sequences, I wouldn't have calls. I would actually book call blocks, like 2-hour, power hour blocks, where I would go through all of the people that I've put into sequence to call them. And I did the same with LinkedIn. So I had LinkedIn blocks. While activating an account, I added every single relevant person into LinkedIn, and I would go to like my recent connections, and we have templates in LinkedIn. We use Surf for that, and usually if low-level contacts, I would just say like hi, and like boom, hi. And then in a few days, another power block, I would follow up with like, hey, this is the reason why I reached out, like very like low friction, very friendly, very like, hey, I'm reaching out more for, building a relationship, career progression than more than selling something. And then eventually, shift the conversation to, hey, I might just want to sell software or, yeah, book a call.
You said you start the conversation with hi with a person who is maybe not a decision maker. So you just say hi first name and that's it, and you're
Hi, first name, and they respond. And if they respond, they're much likely to respond again. So, yeah, there you're like hi, and then you might bring some relevance, but just be curious about their role. Like, hey, what do you like? I saw that you're an FP&A analyst. Like, what does that mean? Like, I'm new to this space, and does that involve like tooling at all, or do you plan in spreadsheets, or and so they start giving you information, then you can leverage that information to contact high level persona.
you ask a question about hey, I'm new to the space, so to start learning about the persona, and then you start asking question about stuff who are relevant to Pigment, or what are you doing?
To the like what we call board contacts, like just put the dart on the board, and then there's ring, and then there's the bullseye. So the board contacts, just speak to them about their role, about how they interact with tooling, how they interact with planning cycles, how they collaborate, what they might be facing in terms of pains. But yeah, not about Pigment. And then as you move like higher up, we try to be more punchy. Like, hey, I'm not gonna wait 3 emails to tell you what I'm doing. Like, this is what we do, and this is why I think I'm a good fit. But we need to find that information first, sometimes with like lower level contacts, and that's why LinkedIn was also super key.
And you did that with every account? Because I'm asking it because generally I know some SDR, they prefer to do the top-down approach, but here it seems like you are doing more like a bottom-up approach.
Today we have BDRs who do the top-down approach. I did it in some accounts as well. Like if you're trying to sell to a company that has, let's say, 600 people and they're barely in an ICP, and they have 5 or 6 people within our, let's say, desired users, then I wouldn't use the board approach necessarily. But let's say if you're prospecting a huge company like Coca-Cola, like where do you start, right? Like who handles this? You have no idea. You need to first like find some information to not blow so much steam. So as we go up market, because Pigment, that's what we want to do. We have the tech to sell to the biggest banks in the world, to the biggest companies in the world, and this darts approach will be more and more important for us moving forward.
Yeah, and also it's more relevant when you reach out because, like you said, when you're reaching out to the right person, you have relevant information. It's not like trying to find something personal about the person. No, it's relevant to the business right now.
Exactly. And it's finding about the person. Like, I think the biggest success is, hey, who's the right person? And you reach out to the person, hey, I talked to this person who mentioned the use of X tool, was curious to, pick your brain and, discuss some of the trends in the very low friction.
What do you do first on a cadence? Do you send an email? Do you call? Do you connect with the person on LinkedIn? What's your first touch?
So the first thing is connect on LinkedIn. But just because of my workflow, like part of our growth team is we have like buttons to automatically go to Sales Navigator and find the best persona right away. So I would go from my Salesforce account layout, click on Sales Nav Finance button, and then I would have all the people, and I would go connect. And then I would go to their profiles, add them to the CRM with Surf, and then add them to a sequence in Outreach. We use Outreach here. And yeah, and usually I put them into sequences. And so I have my first email. If I have a good reason to reach out, like if I have a good insight and I have something relevant to say, call, double tap. But if I have nothing relevant to say, just put them into like more like marketing type emails.
So okay, you still
Call first.
do different
Always
things.
call first because it's cheaper. You want to get that no or that yes quickly.
And so earlier you were saying you use the permission-based opener, and then you also laugh when you do your introduction. Then what's your approach on the cold call? I'm asking that because I know some people have different approaches. Some people, they want to use some information they found. So I know you you are doing that in some point, but also some other people, they are more focused on the three main challenges the solution are solving. So what's your approach?
So yeah, my approach was the insights that we found, I would action them. So if I call you, is because I have a reason to call you. So hey, I was navigating this and I noticed that this, and I was curious about this. And then find information, yeah, sit in silence, and yeah, don't pitch. Like never pitch on the phone.
Can you give an example? Because you said, yeah, I found this, and then I'm curious about this. So can you give a specific example?
One of the incredible things that a growth team does is that they scrap projects. They find like the right projects in the web. So, for example, they say, okay, Caster, they're implementing an FP&A tool because they're hiring an FP&A analyst with this job description of experience implementing X and Y and Z tools. So you're like, hey, this is Andres. I'm calling you cold. Do you have 20 seconds? And I'll very quickly tell you why I'm calling you. And they're like, sure. And I'm like, okay, I know you're not expecting my call, but I'm actually, an FP&A professional. I was navigating some jobs in your scope, and I noticed that you might be implementing a tool. And I was just curious to know about your background in tooling and if you're involved in the evaluation.
We are almost at the end of the episode, so I have the last question that I'm going to ask you. So tell me about your favorite or hardest meeting you've booked.
There was one where we got really late to the party, and some person had told me in a perfect ICP company, like beautiful financial services companies in the UK, like probably the biggest mistake I've made in my Pigment career so far was missing this project because I got the credit because we got the chance to show the product, but we were late and we lost to our main competition. But I got to speak to the VP of finance and I told him, look, I know you're going to implement this tool, but actually the investors of this tool actually sold and invested in Pigment because of this and this. And I was like pushy, and I eventually got through, secured, got a chance to like show the product, but it was too late. It already it'd been too far. And then I had a really cool one also. Now we really try to source advisory partners as well. Like we're really trying to build relationships with the people that recommend to enterprise companies what tools to use. And that's a bit of a challenge being a Series B small French company. And my company is very focused, my ex-consulting firm, very focused on the enterprise space. And through the CFO of my old consulting firm, which is a 5K employee company, I was able to get get Pigment in front of them to be considered in the selection process. We're still early, but that was really cool to talk to like partners in my old firm and be like, hey, I'm on the other side now. Maybe I'll bring you some business from the outside, or So that was really cool as well.
What's your favorite resource to grow as a BDR?
I have like just the vision of BDR at Pigment. So it was a lot about like the nailing our ICP, our buyer persona, the problem we solve. I do listen to, for example, your podcast, Eric, to benchmark with other BDRs. I think you do an amazing job. I don't do enough. I don't do enough. I follow obviously all the like financial planning influencers to see what they're saying, what the people in the market are saying, and I also follow like some of the SDR influencers to see what they're saying and what they have to say.
Can you give specific example for SDR influencers that other SDRs can follow?
So off the top of my mind, so the VP of sales of Clary, what's his name?
Kyle Coleman.
Yeah, Kyle Coleman. I like him. I like this German girl that was at Sales Loft and then launched her own company. What's her name? I have really bad memory, by the way.
Mattia.
Mattia, I like her. I like her a lot. Who else do I follow? Jed. Jed. He's more around like enablement and like sales more than BDR, but I really like her as well. And I love Lavender. I love Lavender CEO's posts. Lavender is a great resource to follow, and yeah.
Do you have a favorite tool in your tech stack?
I love the automations that our growth team has built. So I think my favorite tools are homemade, home cooked, but I love Gong. I definitely love Gong. I have it in my phone and I take it everywhere. And yeah, I really like Gong. I enjoy, yeah, mostly, mostly Gong was like my favorite tool. Do you have a favorite?
Right now, I would say Sales Loft, and why is because I've prospected for the first 2 months on HubSpot, so that's why I'm really
Okay.
low with Sales Loft right now. And I had a question about Gong. Which part of the call do you like to listen the most? Do you have a specific part, or so are you listening to the full call, or what's your process?
Yeah, so cold calls, I listen to a lot of cold calls to give feedback to the BDRs, but then when I was a BDR, I used to like the first stages of calls. And I would also the deals that I sourced, I would make sure to track on Gong from the end to end to understand, okay, what does it take to, because as BDRs, you make the prospect aware of Pigment, you basically sell the lead to the sales organization, and then they run like a very long sales process to bring them home. And understanding what happens in those 9 months is important to this like first piece of prospection. So yeah, definitely no specific part of the call, just the whole sales process.
I'm doing exactly the same. So I love to listen to the first call and then obviously check the rest. But the first call, I'm listening to the problems they are mentioning. Generally, is, hey, they are giving the context on where they are today and what they try to solve, because that's something I can use in my outreach after. Because for me, I didn't do this the same as you. So you were already, you know the pain of your prospect. So maybe you don't need to listen to calls to know that. But for me, for example, right now with data leaders, I need to listen to those calls to say, hey, what's first to understand the space, because I'm really new to data and it's hard for me to understand a lot of technical terms they are using. But then two, why they are going to use something like Castor, and they are giving specific reason for that. And what I'm trying to find is like common patterns that I can, because sometimes it's like a specific situation, and well, it's not like something you can maybe talk to other data leaders, but I want to find like patterns.
Yeah, similar.
What advice would you give to a smart and driven new SDR, and what advice should they ignore?
What advice should they ignore? I'll start there. Don't get caught up in analysis paralysis. Like, just go for it. Like, join a company and a culture that lets you just make mistakes, break things, try new things, and like don't stay where you are. Like, always be moving, but don't mistake motion over impact. Like, always think, am I bringing revenue? Am I bringing pipeline? Or if you're in a fast growing company like mine, or am I helping to hire the best of the best talent? If you're not doing one of those three, switch what you're doing. So yeah, that's and do it, because it's an incredible skill that I apply every day in every interaction that I have. Really, what I've learned as a BDR has changed my life in so many ways, and I'm so grateful I did it, and I'm so grateful for my star BDR teams in Toronto, in the US, and in Europe.
And what's the advice?
Do go be a BDR and think why you're doing it. I think many times, I think if you're doing a BDR just to get a paycheck, I don't think it's the right job. I think if you're doing BDR, think of why you're doing it and where you want to go, and if you want to be a leader and if you want to make a big impact, like that's, I think, the right place for a BDR.
Well, Andres, thank you so much for
Thank you
being
so
on the
much for
show
having me,
today.
Eric.
It was a great conversation. So, but before we finish the episode, do you have something else you want to share with the audience?
No, shameless plug more. We're hiring full steam ahead at Pigment, so in BDR, but also in sales and product engineering support. Check us out. Very exciting stuff. And Eric, see you in Mexico, maybe. Nos comemos unos tacos.
Vamos.
Vamos. Un abrazo. Thanks a lot.
It was nice to
Really
see
enjoyed the
you.
show. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening, and I see you on the next episode.
Thanks a lot for listening. Bye bye.